What is craft spirits? How do you define that?
I have no idea how to define it.
I don't like the word craft distilling.
The owner's there every day.
It's really a collaboration with each other.
It's about integrity, quality, and transparency. Those are the things that, to me, define craft.
I love distilling. That's what I'm passionate about.
If we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right.
We have the momentum.
Some bolt of lightning strikes, and he says, "I can make whiskey." And it begins there.
In the 10 years since the first Hudson whiskey poured from a little copper pot still at Tuthilltown, craft spirits has exploded. As the Hudson Whiskey Ambassador, I wanted to survey the landscape and explore the history and people behind what some are today calling a craft spirits renaissance. And what better place to start my journey than right here at home?
I have a memory of sitting on the front steps of the main house, and we were talking about the idea for a farm distillery, and just sort of thinking, well, this is a really potentially huge idea.
Yeah, I mean, 10 years, now dozens, have started up since Tuthilltown.
Yeah, a dozen in Brooklyn alone. Farm distilleries in Brooklyn. Love it.
All right, well then, let us back up and tell me a little bit about the story as you know it.
Pre-Prohibition, right? So we were an incredibly strong distilling industry before Prohibition. Just to think about that industry that was here and was so well regarded, and at that time, you know, we were really ahead of the curve globally. And we had all these characters and these different styles, and it was such a diverse, high quality distilling tradition. And then that was all gone.
This is the day we have long hoped for. Of course, I am delighted by the final repeal of the 18th Amendment. Let us drink to a further liberation of the American...
After repeal, large-scale distilleries flourished, many having managed to survive Prohibition intact. But laws left over from another era made it nearly impossible for small, craft distilleries to take root again. It would take nearly 70 years and the gumption to change outdated laws before whiskey was being made again in New York State. What is the American spirit that is happening with craft spirits?
That name actually did come out of a conversation with Ralph Lorenzo. I mean, he was talking about how after Prohibition, they didn't create a structure for people to do this again. You know, it existed before, and after it didn't. And it took all this time for people to patchwork it back together.
When we started, we were the first purpose-built distillery since Prohibition. So nobody had really changed any of the laws for distilling. And so I spent the next 4 years lobbying in Albany for a change in the law, which resulted ultimately in the development of the Farm Distillery Act.
And Ralph's work was, absolutely critical to the industry in this state and elsewhere, because other states saw what was happening here. And when there was no structure, there were no laws, the distillers figured out a way to make it happen. We didn't say, let someone else do it, or, oh, we can't do it, never mind, we'll come back when we can do it. We said, no, we got to make this happen. And we figured out a way to make it happen.
Who were the first generation craft distillers?
Jorg, your group
from
St. George.
St. George, of course.
Yeah, these are the guys we only read about.
Right, yeah, exactly. What was the landscape like from your perspective back then?
Sparse. Distillers were few and far between. There were just a handful of people that were operating at the time, and most of them were people that Jorg had actually trained on how to operate stills. We were just coming out of an era where the most popular thing to drink in this country was a white wine spritzer. And when you're living in a time where white wine is too strong for you and you have to put some 7-Up in it to be able to choke it down, it's not a great time to be a distiller. And yet, if you're doing something that you're passionate about, that you love doing, you keep doing it, whether or not there's a market for it. And there wasn't one. It took a lot of time, and it took bartenders discovering that there are some spirits at that point that were good enough to be able to make very spirit-driven cocktails to start opening people's eyes.
Mike.
How you doing, bud? It's good to see you.
Good to be here.
The cocktail movement really supported that that boom in new ways of making spirits. So what we were able to do is say, if you make it, we will buy it. And ultimately we'll get other people interested in it and they'll buy it too. But I used to have a little section of my back bar that I could have all my new interesting things. As time went on, my shelf was not nearly big enough. And the competition for that actually became a very interesting thing. But in the early days, it was us being able to say, we want to support this. I mean, what was it? It wasn't a burgeoning movement, or if it was, we didn't know it. It was just this, this guy making this really interesting thing, and this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to put that bottle right here, and we'll say, this is special, and here's why. There is an art in what a distiller does, and those little things are what really takes something from good to great.
So when you go down to ADI, you can think of 8 years ago or 7 years ago when you first went, and there was 90 people there, and now there's 1,000 people there or more. I think you might find that there are kind of different reasons why people got into it, but you'll probably also find that there are the same reasons why people love it.
Here, you stand on the left side.
No way. I'm not going to be shot on video breaking that cardinal rule.
No, you're going to be walking.
All right. Okay. What is it about the people who are driving this industry?
I say, if you go to visit a winery, there's some tanks, you look around, there's nothing. You go to visit a brewery, and it's totally confusion. Come see a distillery. There's romance.
Yeah.
It's in their DNA. Those guys have the religion. And I remember the first time I went to Belgium, the guy drove me 5 miles out in the country to show me the dirt. Here's our dirt. He's so proud of the dirt. People coming from backgrounds of every kind you can ever imagine.
That may be the one common thread, is that nobody has a background in it. You walk down, there's an old airline pilot, and there's a rock salesman, and there's no two stories alike, and that's part of the fun of it. And it's just like within the spirits, there's no two spirits that are alike.
It's part of the American story. When we drink whiskey or anything, tequila, vodka, whatever, there's stories behind those bottles. There's history, there's culture.
The first time I met Gable, we were doing a little tasting. No one showed up because it was July 4th in New York City. So basically, I was just like, me and him sitting there going like, let's hang out, what do you want to talk about? And he had in his bag a bottle of whiskey. So he pulls it out and he's like, this is Mother's Milk Stout. It was left over in the kegs after my wedding. I ran it through the still, put it in a barrel for a little while, and he's like, I want to taste it with you, I want you to have it. And that thing to me, I'm just like, I'm yours, man. That's how they fall in love. I think people don't fall in love with spirits, they fall in love with ideas, brands, people. And it kind of gives that visceral experience that makes them want to come back and try new stuff again.
If you want to find where the genesis of innovation is in American spirits, you don't have to look any farther than the craft spirit world.
People like Darek up in Corsair, who's making whiskey out of the most bizarre grains and smoking them in the most bizarre ways that have never existed before.
To start a distillery in the South isn't as novel as in other parts of the country that don't have a distilling tradition. So for us, we really felt like we had to make very unusual whiskeys to stand out. Our pumpkin moonshine. No one's going to mistake that for a standard bourbon or a standard Tennessee whiskey.
But this is oated peated bourbon?
Yes.
Is that an outlier there?
It's an outlier. I think that's more for, we can get pretty experimental. I mean, there's no one in front of you, there's just no one ahead of you. So whoever gets in can go wherever they want.
What I really want to see, and it's not my place to say it, but this is just my opinion, I want to see more people exercising more creativity. I think of the industry like a conversation, and there's a lot of stuff that's already been said. And if you come out and you say the same thing that everybody else has already said, what have you added? You haven't added anything. All you're trying to do is take from somebody else somewhere. Add something instead. And there are a lot of them now who are starting to do that.
Who's saying something new?
I think Timo and Ashby up at Spirit Works are saying new stuff. Yeah, they're doing great stuff, and they're putting their own thumbprint on what they're doing.
We are a grain-to-glass facility, so we're very, very proud of the raw materials that we use. It's California grown, it's organic, beautiful red winter wheat, and being a grain-to-glass facility is really important to us.
And there's a whole new generation of whiskey drinkers coming online. They want to support things that are local, they want something that feels handmade, and they want it to be authentic.
There's a lot of things that are really exciting me about it. I think one of them that's particularly exciting to me is the introduction of the discussion of terroir into the world of whiskey. Like really, where did the grain come from? You know, really, where did the raw ingredients come from? You know, and talking about or caring about the place that the whiskey is from.
I can remember going to one of the whiskey fests and seeing Ralph and Gable there and getting a glass of unaged corn whiskey and thinking that that was the single best thing that I had tasted at that entire tasting, because it smelled like corn.
It tastes like what it's made.
Yeah, you knew exactly what it was, and for us, that's one of the yardsticks for measuring when a spirit's right.
I believe that the terroir shines a lot more in a lot of the craft distilling than you find in some of the other areas. And by terroir, it's not necessarily just the land and the environment, the grain that we use. It's almost like a social terroir too. Who's behind it and how they choose to express how they make whiskey.
If there's one thing that you see across the board with a lot of folks starting up, it still ain't easy. Almost like you have to be a little, like half crazy.
It did take us 4 years of serious work to get to the point that we knew what we wanted to do, how we wanted to do it, ordered equipment, got everything in place, and then...
So in some ways, not knowing what we were doing was a big help. We've been close a couple times to losing it. You know, we're a tiny little brand. You're here standing in the mud today. It's different. It's not an industrial place, it's an agricultural place. So I think part of it is just being here in America and having the spirit to try something new, and we had to make it work. You know, that we'd both put our lives into this thing, and as the problems come up, you know, we'd knock them down.
Our head distiller here is a woman, the assistant distiller is a woman as well, and kind of stands out, I think, within a very male-dominated industry.
And it confuses people at first. They look for Timo. People come in and they're like, so where's the guy in charge? I mean, there's a guy here, but what do you...
But I'm definitely not in charge.
How do you make the leap to deciding that this is something you're going to make for the marketplace and you're going to share it with other folks, you're going to slap a label on and try to get it on shelves?
Complete and utter naivete. If we knew what we were doing, we would have never started a distillery. Like, starting a distillery is incredibly difficult, especially on a very small scale. We pitched to some investors, we got turned down, we never got funding, and so we just kind of bootstrapped our way into it. But we loved doing it, and anything that let us do more of it, we were going to find a way.
Yeah, I think there were plenty of times in the history of St. George Spirits where anybody with a lick of sense would have just cashed in and said, it's time to find another job. And thankfully, we didn't have a lick of sense. We just kept at it.
Everybody's different, but the point is that there's a driving sense that I don't have to deal with everybody and I don't have to please everybody. I have to please myself. I have to do something right, and I want to feel the pride of craft. There's nothing like it. I made this. Yes, sir. Is it the president? This is Penn. I'm on the air.
So, looking at the last 10 years, what do you see for the next 10 years?
10 years down the line, I have absolutely no clue, but I can't wait to find out.
We have been dominated by the giant corporations, and this is a counter-revolution in the most delicious way, literally and figuratively.
I guess the revolution is that you have a much bigger choice than you ever did. We did something no one else would do, and here it is. Hope you enjoy it.
People are saying, you know, certainly we're getting saturated.
No, we're not 1% of the industry.
I think we got a long way to go.
We have the mind share. That's what counts, not the 1% of the volume, but the mind share.
And once we started with the whiskey, I fell in love with doing it. It was so much fun.
I mean, I don't think the Corsair would be what it is right now if we didn't have someone like Tuthilltown to look up to in so many ways, to say you can be small, you can be local and tout that, and you can be doing something very different that the marketplace isn't used to. Seeing all that you can be successful and have a great brand, that was hugely influential to us.
The Farm Distilling Act made just a massive difference, and you know, Ralph's involvement in that should be honored forever.
The sort of lesson to be learned is that things which we often think are impossible are not if you stick to them long enough. And we did it, so you can.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, guys. Is that it? Was that your wrap?
It's your wrap.
Oh, yeah, all right. I mean, it's not like... Okay, that's a wrap.
This has been an amazing journey. It's clear the craft spirits revolution is about the tenacity, creativity, and passion of the folks making it happen, but I've come to see it's about even more than that. It's about the social terroir, a connection with someone's dream to share their unique spirit with the world, the distillation of the idea that anything is possible. And done right, well, it's simply a delicious experience to enjoy, with friends, with family, with pride. So, that's a wrap. Cheers.
I think people want something that feels more sustainable, and they certainly want, and now I forgot them.
Remind me of her name.
I'd have to look at my book.
There's 8 employees and only 1 is a guy.
So there's
Women-centric.
I'm good. They gave me this red phone and said if I don't answer it, the Iran deal is off. The veterinarian, you gotta remember, he's putting his arm up the cow's butt every day for 25 years, right? He says, I think I'd like to distill. This is getting old.
This is whiskey being made right now.
I hope they turn out smart.
Yeah.
No, Frankie.
And they left going, okay, I'm gonna take a shot.
Well, if those schmucks can do it.
Yeah, man. They're like,
But that's very true, though.
Why don't you stop and put your tennis shoes on? You can't outrun that bear. He says, I don't have to outrun the bear, I just have to outrun you.
It takes a special talent. I love to be able to put something in people's mouths. Dave, don't take that anywhere weird.
I now have a totally different perspective of this, and now I understand a little bit more about it. So that's probably a long way of answering a very short question.